Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition, a sad edition, of my favorite podcast. I don't know about yours, Chuckles Madden. I'm your host, Chuckles152, and today we are mourning the firing of Doug Peterson, the single best coach in Eagles football history. Why? Well, he's the only one to bring home this mother effer. The fucking Lombardi Trophy. And I'm not happy about it. But before we begin, I want you to see something. All time, Philadelphia Eagles are 590 and 619 and 27. That don't matter. They are minus 29 games all time, lifetime. They are a perfect 23 and 23 in the playoffs. Not so perfect, but it doesn't change. Minus 29. So I'm here to prove a point today that we should have really been happy with Doug Peterson because it really can get worse. And how bad? Well, take a look from 1933 to 1942. The Philadelphia Eagles were atrocious. 3-5, 4-7, 2-9, 1-11. Wow. 2-8, 5-6, 1-9. Yeah, fellas, we're really improving. Oh, wait. 1-10, 2-8-1, 2-9. Then the Steagles come. The Eagles' first winning season, they weren't even called the Philadelphia Eagles, if you didn't know this. They were called the Steagles. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles getting combined. Greasy Neal was the co-head coach along with the Steelers head coach. They went 5-4-1. And the Philadelphia Eagles did come out of this the better. They finally became a winning football team. 7-1-2. 7-3. 1946, they were 6-5. And then, bam, they make the playoffs. They won the divisional playoff game against their old teammates, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost the NFL championship. And bam, Greasy Neal cements himself as the greatest coach in Philadelphia Eagles history by winning not one, but 2 NFL championships back to back. And if you didn't know this, they are the only football team to have 2 consecutive shutouts in a championship game. Only ones. But it wasn't going to last. The following year, the Eagles go 6-6. And Greasy Neal leaves. The Eagles go to Bo McMillan. They go to 4-8. And then Jim Trimble comes in. They don't do too bad. They're always about 7-5, 7-4 under Jim. Hugh DeVore takes them to 3-4-8. And, you know, it just, by the way, Greasy Neal. This is the Greasy Neal. He's a legend in Philadelphia Eagles history. You should know who he is. Better, closer look at his time as Eagles head coach. And, well, here's the next time the Eagles become winners. 1960. Buck Shaw, Norm Van Brocklin, and most importantly, Chuck Bednarik take the Philadelphia Eagles to go and give Vince Lombardi his only loss in a playoff game or a championship game. This right here, it's Frank Gifford. If you don't know who Frank Gifford is, he's the husband of Kathy Lee Gifford. He was an NFL running back that Chuck Bednarik hit so hard that he knocked him into next week. So, if you don't know who Chuck is, I want to give you a quick history lesson. Chuck Bednarik is Concrete Charlie. He's from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He wore number 60, and he is the last of the 60 Minutemen. He played both ways. He was a center and a middle linebacker. And he was nasty. He hit people as hard as he could. He knocked New York Giants running back Frank Gifford out of the league for 2 full years. The man couldn't play in the NFL for 2 full years because Chuck knocked him the fuck out. And that's what happened. This is a famous Eagles photo. If you've never seen it, I'm glad to be the first person to show it to you. It's great. Chuck grew up in Bethlehem, PA. He was just a nasty football player. The reason he was known as Concrete Charlie is because not only did he hit people like a load of concrete, his hands felt like they were made out of concrete, but he sold concrete in the offseason because being a football player didn't pay enough to pay the bills. So, Eagles win that championship game thanks to this guy. Quick story. My pop loved to tell me about his own playing days. Back in the day, there was a lot of semi-pro teams all around every major city. They'd play other semi-pro teams, and people would pay admission, and the owners would pay the players of these teams. My grandfather played for one in Southwest Philly. Well, he found himself playing in a game where this guy was knocking the crap out of him and his teammates. That guy ended up being Chuck Bednarik, the head coach of the University of Pennsylvania. Ran on the field and dragged Chuck off the field. That's how much this dude right here loved football. He would even play with like guys that couldn't even make it to the NFL or make it to the college ranks. He would go play with them for fun. And then we get to the 1960s, which was not fun for Philadelphia Eagles fans. Just as bad as the founding, you had 1, 2 winning seasons in the entirety of the 1960s. It was bad, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, they wouldn't even go 500 again until 1974. And they would not have a winning season until a new coach came in. It was so bad at one point that people flew banners for this guy right here, Joe Kuharich, who cost them, by the way, the chance to draft. Well, Joe and Jerry Williams, I think it was Jerry, cost them the chance to draft O.J. Simpson, who was a prize because he was a hell of a football player. But fans flew banners saying Joe must go, and that was a famous bucket that he kicked. And they were hoping he would kick the bucket and get out of town. But there was a savior. One of the very few very good football coaches for the Philadelphia Eagles. He took the Eagles 4 years straight, and unfortunately in 1982, he quit. He cried. The Eagles were bad that year. There was a strike. The Eagles went 3-6 in the strike-shortened season, took 13th plus in the standings, and the Eagles didn't make the playoffs, and Dick decided to retire for a long while. But he was great. He brought the Eagles winning football for the first time. And many thought that would be the last time, because the next few years under Marion Campbell, the Eagles reverted back to a bad football team. Real bad. 5-11, 6-9, 7-9. But one guy, a brash Kentucky horse farmer named Buddy Ryan, who styled the 46 defense, he brought winning back to Philadelphia. It took him 2 years, and even one where his best player won Defensive Player of the Year, even though the team was 7-8. The Eagles started going back to the playoffs, and Buddy took them there 3 straight years, and despite doing so, he was fired at the end of it because his boss decided he couldn't get them over the hump. It wasn't his fault they lost at the Bears. The fog rolled in the famous Fog Bowl and cost the Eagles a playoff win against Buddy's old team. And then Rich Kotite came in. Yes, Rich brought them to the playoffs once, but he was god-awful. And his record would tell you that he was actually a decent coach. If you look, he was 21, 29. He was 36 and 28 as Eagles head coach. But just like really take a look at this guy right here and then this season. This season, I was 7 years old for, and I can remember just the agony of my family during those games. It was awful. This game right here, the Eagles blew the doors off the eventual Super Bowl champions. But then, because of Kotite's mismanagement and just being an utter fucking dickhead, the Eagles fucking reverted to basically a losing football team again. This guy, famously, if you didn't know, in the rain, did not laminate his play chart and didn't know what play to run. So, we then get Ray Bob, who then takes us to two playoff back to back, but not to three. Not like Buddy, not like Dick, not like Greasy Neal. And then he has two very bad losing seasons, going 6-9-1, and then an atrocious 3-13. Ray would say it wasn't him. Many would say it was Joe Banner that caused it. Ray wasn't a bad coach. But thankfully, after Ray was fired by Jeffrey Lurie, a new coach came in. One that set the new record for consecutive playoff berths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row was Andy Reid. Then they had a bad year. And even after that bad year, they went back to the playoffs in 2006. And then they had another down year at 8-8. But that didn't last. The Philadelphia Eagles were able to make it back to the NFC Championship game and make it again to 3 straight playoff appearances. I mean, this team right here was so close to a Super Bowl, even though they were 9-6-1. Then they lost to the Cowboys. We waved goodbye to Donovan. And Michael Vick came in, brought us back to the playoffs. And after a subpar 4-12 that Andy should have never been fired for. Like, this guy did so much for the Philadelphia Eagles. In came Chip Kelly, who brought us to one playoff berth. And then I consider 2015 one of the most god-awful years of football I've ever had to endure in my entire life. It was just bad. And then that brings me to my man Doug. Listen, 2016 wasn't pretty, but 2017 was the prettiest best friend I ever did have. Nick Foles was Super Bowl MVP. We then went to 2018, and we were one drop pass away from another NFC Championship game. We were one bad hit in 2019 from possibly winning another playoff game and making it even further. And one bad year made them remove a guy that took us to the playoffs 3 years straight. I want you to realize there was just Doug, just Andy, Buddy, Greasy Neal, and I forgot my picture of my guy, Dick Vermeil. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2 will count for Dick. 3 we will count for Buddy. 4 for for Andy Reid and 5 in almost 100 years of football. Only 5 coaches have brought the Eagles to 3 consecutive playoff berths. And to get rid of the guy that did it most recently with a Super Bowl trophy, I think was a very, very short-sighted thing to do. I think the Eagles will rue the day that they fired Doug Peterson, in my opinion, the best coach in Eagles history. God bless everyone. Have a good night.